Good day and greetings from the Great White North. My name is Prickly Poo, and welcome to day 289 of a year of change. Today, I want to talk about something that we've sort of touched. I feel like I always start out by saying this. I'm going to talk about something we touched on before, or that we talked about before, or that I touched myself before. But throughout this entire thing that we've been doing, we have been very much aware of the behaviors that we do that sort of trigger those eating moments where we either binge or we, give in and end up having cakes or muffins or sour jujubes or any of the other bad things that we end up eating. But something happened a couple of weekends ago, throughout the past couple of weeks anyway, that I figured I would share with you anyway. That sort of ties into that. Now, since I started doing the daily recording, I haven't really had a lot of time to do much of anything else. I have work and stuff like that, but I don't really do anything. And during the past couple of weeks, where it was the holidays, I had quite a few days off. I didn't have to go to work, and I had a 4-day work week, and then I had a 4-day weekend, and then a 3-day work week, and then a 3-day weekend. And now sort of things are back on track today. So during this time, I haven't just sort of sat and watched like a bunch of movies or played any video games or anything like that in a very, very long time. So I thought, I haven't played a game in a while. I'm going to play a game. So I sort of re-downloaded something and started playing it for a while and ended up spending quite a bit of time on it. And it's been fun. But it's weird because that's the sort of thing, like sitting down and, for 10 hours straight during a job. It's a little bit different because you're constantly occupied, you're doing something, at least you feel productive, you feel like you're doing something. And so when I'm at work, I don't feel like, I'm bored, I should have something to eat. Like I'll have a coffee, which I rarely finish and then have to replenish throughout the run of the day. But you're busy, you're actually doing something. But when I was sitting and I had an entire day. I was all caught up on everything, I didn't need to do anything. And so I sat for the entire day and just played video games. It was great. I haven't done that in close to a year. So it was nice just having a day where I didn't have to go anywhere, didn't have to do anything. Everything was all set. But what I noticed was that I was very much aware that this is what I used to do all the time, all day, every day when I wasn't working. That I would come home, sit, watch TV, or play a game, or do something where you're just sort of sitting, staring straight ahead, and it's not that same sort of engagement that you get from a job. And so a lot of my eating habits would come from that. I always would have something while I was sitting playing, like a bag of chips or cakes or cookies or candies or something. I would always have something that I would be snacking on throughout the entire. But when you're just nonstop eating for 10 hours straight, that's not a snack. That's not just snacking, or as people call it, grazing. It's not. You're eating throughout the entire day. You fill up on a regular meal, and then it's like, I'm not uncomfortably full anymore. I'll eat a little bit. Okay, now I'm full again. Oh, not full. Eat a bit. So there's a constant flow of food going in, and I've been very worried in the past about getting into something that's going to trigger a binge, or we've had some of them have been pretty bad, but nothing to the extent that I used to eat, where I would sit and eat, like 1.5 pizzas, and then an hour later have 2 or 3 plates of nachos, and then have 5 hot dogs, and I'm not exaggerating. That's what I would eat. So I'm very much aware of those things that will sort of click that or sort of trigger that. But sitting and just staring at a computer screen and playing a game, something like that, there is a behavior there as well that it started to worry me. Because where I'm a little more aware of, what my trigger points are, and is that the right word? Trigger behaviors are, whatever. That they tend to jump out a little bit more at me. So I was sitting there and I thought, I'm kind of hungry. And then I immediately just stopped and went, am I hungry? Or is this that old habit coming back where I'm just sitting and I'm not doing anything And so, yeah, as I'm doing everything else, now I want to have something. I want to be eating something. It doesn't matter what it is, if it's salty or sugary or anything. As it turns out, no, I actually had a regular meal, I had a proper meal, and things were okay. I mean, during Christmas, I was fairly sick anyway, so I didn't really have that, ooh, I'm just going to sit and eat a whole bunch of stuff. So I did fairly well there. But I really noticed it this past weekend as well, because this, again, everything was caught up at work. I was more than caught up by the time I left. I had everything caught up here. I had 3 days where I didn't need to do anything, and I finished everything off on Friday. I did not do my treadmill, which I should have. But everything else, and actually I'll bring that up as well. Everything else was done, so I sat and played a game all day. And part of me is thinking, that's what's contributing to the bad eating habits throughout the weekend. But I can't really blame that. But I think it's very important that we are very much aware of not just our reaction to food itself that triggers this stuff, but the little things that we don't really think of, like those old habits that we go into. And this is something I've been worried about, because although I had lots and lots of fun, playing with friends and everything else, part of me is still very, very worried that, that appeal of just, sort of going to that familiar place, I guess. Although it felt really good, this sounds like a drug addict. Although it felt really, really good, there's still that sense of, I don't know if this is a good thing for me, because I don't want to get back into that old behavior. Now, there are two ways to look at this. One, obviously, is the same thing with alcoholics, saying, one drink, one drunk. Say, no. Obviously, if you know it's a trigger, then just stay away from it. You shouldn't be doing it at all. I don't feel that is, number one, an effective way of dealing with it. Number two, I don't think it's a very intelligent way of dealing with it either. Because you're going to be hit with everything all the time. And just denying that, it's a trigger for you or avoiding something doesn't make it any less powerful towards you. So if I know that just sitting and playing a game sort of brings me back to, oh, this feels familiar, I should be, nonstop eating while I'm doing this. Being aware of that, I shouldn't be running from that. I don't think that we should be putting ourselves in a position where we go, oh, you know what, I simply can't do that. Because then that's the same thing as us saying, well, I can't have hot dogs, or I can't have fries, or I can't have, this and that and the other thing. We can. Our problem was that we were eating it all the time. So just by hiding from it and avoiding it at all times, I don't think is very effective, and it doesn't deal with the issue, I think, is what my problem with it is. Because it basically just goes, no, there's no problem there, it's just ignore that, there's nothing wrong over there. Well, there's something very much wrong over there, so we need to deal with that. We need to address it. We need to accept responsibility for it, the same way that we've been doing with our weight and with our exercise and everything else since we started this. So I think the better way for me to deal with this, and this is something that I did over the past couple of weeks, and I think that just being aware of it and being able to stop and go, all right, I know that this is something that when I used to do it, I used to just eat nonstop, just junk food and shit and chips and pop and everything else. Knowing that, then, I mean, you have to make that conscious decision to say, I can participate in this. If you're going out with friends, for example, if you're trying to cut back on drinking and all your friends are going out, you say, when I go out with friends, I end up getting drunk to the point where I, crash into buildings and, set fire to police cars and everything else. If you know that, I think there is that, obviously, the same way that we look at food, saying, well, then I just simply am not going to go out with my friends. You can go out with your friends. Just when you're going out with your friends, don't drink. Or at least don't drink to the point where you're being an idiot. The same thing, I think, happens with food, that if you're doing something, going out with friends, or, sitting, playing video games, or if you are, whatever that activity is that you find, this is the activity that I used to sort of do, that not exactly that triggers it, because I don't want to give the impression that by doing one activity then you're going to eat. It's just that because it's been such a long time since I've done that the only thing that I associate with that is I'm sitting and I'm eating, because if I wasn't doing that, I was just eating anyway. So it is, the fact that I'm aware of it, I think, is very helpful. But I think it's better for us to deal with it in a way saying, you know what, I can do these activities. I can go hang out with my friends. I can go online. I can watch movies. I can go to parties. Whatever it is that you've decided to do. And just say, I just know that it's going to be a little more difficult to, avoid the second half of those bad behaviors. Because I really do believe that just by avoiding everything and just denying that it's even there, that doesn't deal with anything. It doesn't help us with what we're trying to do. It doesn't help us change. It doesn't help us, address the underlying issues beneath it, either underlying issues beneath it, as opposed to the underlying issues above it. Fucking tool. Anyway, so just being aware of it, though, was much easier to just say, okay, no, I understand that the craving that I'm getting for cookies or cakes or candies or chips or anything else, although my eating habits during I was going to say diet, but my diet during the weekend was not good. It wasn't because of the games, it was just because it was not good. Can't live on muffins for a weekend and have it not come back to bite you in the ass, which it did yesterday. But just knowing that and being able to address it and say, okay, I understand in my head that the cravings that I'm having, it's just that familiarity. I'm not actually hungry. I know that I don't really want to sit and eat. I don't even know if I could sit and eat an entire bag of chips. And I don't mean like a little bag. I mean like the big family-sized bag, which is what I would go through, at least one of those. So I don't even know if I could physically get through it all. And I know that that's just a matter of, it's like smoking. When you're with friends and, they're having a cigarette or something, and if you've just quit, there's still that craving. And you think, I know that I don't want it. It's just that familiarity is there. Actually, you know what? Best way to look at this, getting back with an ex. Because we've all done it at some point. We've all been in a shit situation, a relationship, where everything has just gone to hell and you are finally free. And then you think, okay, this is good. Everything is great. And then, people eventually get back with their ex because it's familiar. It's not because it's good. It's not because it's beneficial for you in any way. It's not even because it's healthy. It's because it's familiar. And so that's why people tend to go back. And I think it's the same thing with these behaviors and with eating habits and everything else, that knowing that that is there, I can deal with it much easier and say, I'm not really hungry. I don't want this stuff. It's just because that's what's missing. When I'm doing an activity, and there's always been that second part. But the thing is that there are a lot of activities that I do that there's always been that second part where eating is always there. Watching TV, that was a hard part, trying to get to a point where I can sit and watch TV and not have to just constantly be eating something. When I'm bored, that thankfully has really been alleviated quite a bit. The fact that I'm bored, I need to eat. Now I'm bored, okay, we'll find something to do. I don't think of food as that first option anymore, which is really, really good. It took a long, long time to get to that point. I think I remember it as well. Not in my head, but I think I recorded it, I should say. So it is a concern that I have that, an old behavior that's tied into eating so much is something that I should avoid doing. But I enjoy doing it. And I don't have to have the eating portion of it. Actually, what I found and I ended up doing was I drank a lot more water yesterday or the day before than I did previously. And I think part of that is just to say, okay, well, just get my head around the fact that I'm not actually hungry, but I need something, so I'm just going to keep drinking. And then the other half, of course, is that I really should be drinking more water anyway, and that I was thirsty. So a little bit of everything. But we all have something, and it may be the same thing. It may be video games. It may be TV. It may be going out with friends. It might be, even just sitting working if you work from home or if you're at work. And there are people that I work with that they always have something at their desk. And it's just whatever those triggers are for you, I think it's much more important that we become aware of them and deal with them that way than avoiding them altogether. Because avoiding them is just simply hiding from the fact that they're there. And I think it would be much, much easier to sort of slide back into them. But by acknowledging that they're there and still being able to do it and say, okay, I can do this one half of it. the fun activity portion of it, I can do that. I need to avoid the food part of it. Because really, I mean, when we started this, that was a big part of it, that we wanted to change how we reacted to food. And those old behaviors, because they're so strongly tied in with that, it's going to be difficult to try to get past them. But I think that we can do it. You know that you can do it. I mean, look at the progress that you've made over the past 9 or 10 months anyway. You know that you can do it. It's just going to be very difficult. And, I mean, there's that aspect of, I don't really want to, it's going to be too hard, and I'm going to quit, and I'm going to fail. But, I mean, we have to deal with it eventually at some point. You can't simply avoid doing everything and avoid having certain foods in your house and everything else, because it's ridiculous. You need to be able to have a real life. And I think part of that is not only just doing different activities and stuff like that, but being able to say, you know what, yeah, I have cookies in the house, especially if you have other people. Like with me, it's a little easier because I buy all the groceries. I'm the only person here. So if I'm going to buy something that's bad for me, I know I'm going to eat it. So I just don't buy it. And that's not a matter of, I can't have it in the house. If I want something, then yes, I will buy something. But I don't eat the entire thing all at once. And I mean, this is why the progress has been very slow, but it's been very steady. But it's a little more difficult when you have other people living in the house, and especially if you're not the one who's responsible for buying groceries, that the food is going to be there. But just simply saying, well, we can't have it in the house is sort of the same thing as me saying, well, I can't watch TV, or I can't play video games, or I can't go out with friends, or I can't have any social activities, outside of my home, because there might be food there. We know that there is going to be food there. We have to deal with it. And the only way to really deal with that, I think, is to be consciously aware of it. But it does help a great deal. Being able to look at it and say, I know that by doing this certain activity, I'm going to want to eat to a point where I'm just eating to eat. I'm not hungry. And I just obviously want junk food. I'm not going to sit and go, it really could use a salad. It's going to be horrible food. Or junk food. Not horrible. But by knowing that, I think it helps us to deal with it much, much better than just simply avoiding it and sticking our head in the sand and pretending like it's not there. So, anyway, it's something I wanted to bring up to you because it was a concern. I discussed this with a friend of mine yesterday and just said, I can feel that coming back, that you think, I want to eat something bad. But being able to recognize it, I think, has helped a lot. And my friends are good that way. At least they may not understand, they may not agree, but they'll at least acknowledge it. And if they disagree, they'll tell me. And half the time they're just going to say, well, then just don't buy junk food to sit and eat. And I'm like, well, good point. Shit. Anyway, I just wanted to sort of bring that up. So if you have anything that's similar, let me know, because there are different things that sort of trigger different people. And it's taken me a long time to get to a point when I think that I could do this safely. I don't think I would have been able to do this, 6 months ago. I think it would have been a little too soon to sort of slide back into it because it's really difficult now. So I can't imagine how it would have been, especially when I had just started. But it was really more of along the lines of, not having time for it and sort of being more focused on something else. And now I have a little bit of time, so I took a couple of weeks and spent some time there. It was fun. And I'll probably continue on doing it. I know that there's a little bit of a struggle ahead of me, but you will see in my diary on MyFitnessPal if I backslide. I will let you know as well. And I hopefully think that hope shall be hopeful. I'm going to leave this video here. So thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, please poke the like button for me. And in the meantime, keep yourself warm and fuzzy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.